everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it's time for the mini fall August release, and this is project 2. Hey, so I'm using Jaded Blossom's new Gnome Friends Chipmunk die. They're Nuts About You that's new, along with the outline dies. I'm also using Jaded Blossom's fall dies. They're Gnome Dies Animal add-ons, just the little peanut. I'm using the fall banner dies. Gnome Dies Fall add-ons, just for that eggcorn there. I'm using Nutty For You stamp set from Jaded Blossom. And their mushroom dies, their card mat dies. And that is a sneak peek. You weren't supposed to see that. That's an upcoming item that I'm actually going to use in this release. They're called the Fall Embellishment dies, and they're going to come sometime soon. I'm using odds and ends from Doodlebug Pumpkin Spice. I'm using their Farmer's Market 6-inch pad, their plaid polka dot 6-inch pad as well. So first I cut out this plaid pattern with the card mat dies, and then I'm using the mushroom dies, this little grass border, to cut it out again. So I have that stitching line. Next I'm using Distress ink in Mowed Lawn, and I'm going to ink around the edge. There we go. And now I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm using that Nuts About You stamp set, or Nutty For You stamp set, sorry. And I'm going to stamp onto the fall dies. This is a little sign with Go Nuts using VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink and my Misty. That little sign was cut from G-Min Tyndalo wood grain cardstock in craft. I think I used the other side. There it is. Now I am going to add a strip of paper to the inside. So this is a horizontal card, 4.25 by 11, scored at 5.5 inches. So I'm adding a 1-inch strip of that Doodlebug's Farmhouse 6-inch pad. I don't know if I said Farmer's Market before, but it's Farmhouse, I think. There we are. And this is, like I said, paper tray ink white cardstock. There, just, making sure the fold is good. And I realized something's going on there. I've got to trim off a little piece. I wasn't accurate in my cutting, I guess. And there we are. Now I'm going to add this piece is from the Farmhouse 6-inch pad from Doodlebug. So it is 1/8 of an inch smaller than an A2 size card front, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I'm using my ATG tape to stick that down. I really like to use a diagonal stripe as a border paper. I just think it has some fun movement. It looks fun along the edge. So next I'm going to add, this is paper from that same pad, cut out with the Jaded Blossom's card mat dies. So I'm going to be adding this on. The nice thing is when you use one paper line or from one company, a lot of times the colors match. And these colors, like they did all the guesswork for you, so everything matches and looks perfect. Next, I'm going to add in my little grassy piece with my ATG tape. So it's super cute. I like to mix patterns, and like I said, you can't go wrong when you're using Doodlebug paper to do this, I think. Like I said, they do all the hard work for you, right? So now on the inside, I'm using odds and ends from the Pumpkin Spice Doodlebug kit, and I am adding in, so what I do is I try to match what's going on the outside on the inside. So I'm adding a pumpkin, and then I'm going to add my little squirrel, which I'm going to have on the, well, I actually have a chipmunk on the front, but you get the gist, right? My husband calls them tree rats, but I kind of like them. They're kind of cute, right? Now I'm going to stamp a sentiment on the inside. This is fall candy, or no. My goodness. No, this is my Nuts About You stamp set. Sorry, guys. I'm going to stamp that in VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. So it says Nuts About You. Isn't that fun? And I'm going to use the Fall Candy stamp set from Jaded Blossom as well. And I'll put right underneath Happy Fall. So this will be a fun fall card. And I'm just going to ink that up with my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. There. And, you know, stamping it twice, making it nice with the Misty, right? And there we go. So now I'm inking around the edge of this little fall, it's from the Fall Dies, and it's like a little wood barrel. I'm using Vintage Photo. I had inked it first with some Close to My Heart cocoa ink, and then I inked over it with the Vintage Photo. And I'm going to add on these two little straps of the barrel, or whatever it's called. And I cut that out of that plaid polka dot paper from Doodlebug in like orange. There we go. Gluing it down with my Barely Arts glue. Remember, all my die cutting today was done with my Anna Griffin Empress machine, working on a Stampin' Up! Pad, all the things I always do. Now, remember my little chipmunk there? There is an assembly video for him, so check that out. As you can see, I already have his face stamped and everything, and you can watch me do that on the video. So now I am adding on all these little nuts and acorns that I already assembled. I did ink around them in some Close to My Heart cocoa ink, at least some of them, not the peanut, but you get the gist. And I'm just making a pile of these nuts in this bucket. Now the little tiny ones, that's from that fall embellishment die set that I wasn't supposed to show you. So this is a true sneak peek, guys. You'll only see it here. And they are super cute. So I'm not sure when they're coming, sometime in the fall, so keep your eye out. So I am adding them on to my little bucket. Now I am going to glue this now down. I also already have some ATG tape on the back, and I'm going to slip that in behind the grass a little bit and stick it down. There we go. The bucket was cut from the G. Mintindala Wood Grain Craft cardstock. Now I'm using my black glaze pen, and I'm going to color in the little nail holes. So you'll get a little bit of black dimension and shine in each of these little holes, and it just, I think, adds a little something, right? You could use brads. You could color with a marker behind there, whatever you want to do. But I really like the shine of a black glaze pen, but you got to let it dry because it can smear. I'm taking my Secure White Jelly Roll pen in a number 10, and I'm going to add a couple of highlights on these, right there, on these little acorns. I actually grabbed a really skinny one. I think it was a 5. You know when you got to color in around those stamped faces, the eyes? You need like a little tiny pen. That works great too. But for my bold highlights, I like to use my number 10. So there we go. Remember, everything's listed on my blog. If you're ever looking to see what I use, I generally have everything listed there under the recipe. So now I'm using some Stampin' Up! Dimensionals behind this cute little chipmunk. And there we go. And I am peeling off the release papers. I just want to make sure that it's going to, have, stay nice and flat as it goes over that bucket. So I'm adding a little bit of ATG tape to some places where it's going to overlap some other things. There, and some glue for good measure. And there we go. And we have a super cute little chipmunk. Now I am adding on, I'm going to slip in a little Stampin' Up! Dimensional behind the ear there, kind of where I miscalculated. And that always helps, right? So now I'm going to assemble my little sign. I'm going to give it the little handle there. There. And then I will decide where it's going to go. I'm going to add a few little dimensionals behind, where it kind of hangs off that little squirrel there. You always kind of have to push down and see what happens. But I am loving this new mini release. I just think it's super fun for your fall cards. You can get cracking on them. I just think these are the cutest thing going. And you can't go wrong with another Gnome Friends dies, right? Like Gnome Friends Chipmunk dies. Go with all the other Gnome Friends. Remember, all the accessories, or at least most of them, you can use with this little chipmunk, which kind of makes it even more fun. He can be holding whatever you want. I'm going to add in a little strip of, like a little foam strip there. Tuck that little sign behind his foot. And now we're in business. And I'm going to pop up his little, I'm just going to add in another dimensional there. I like to leave all this in so you see that I don't just make things and speed through. So I'm going to pop up his little hand there with a Stampin' Up! Dimensional. I'm going to add the other one as well here. But first I'm going to give him something to hold. This is an acorn. I already assembled all the acorns, ink blended around the edges. I figured you've seen me put these together numerous times and they're pretty darn straightforward. So there we are. So I'm going to give him his little hand and oh, isn't he cute? My goodness, right? So next I'm going to add a few more of these little acorns as decoration on this card. As I cut them and assembled them already, I might as well use them, right? And as I say, more is more. Sometimes it feels like that, right? So now I have these little miniature acorns that you aren't supposed to see. We won't discuss that because I may have made a mistake. Oh, I can't tell you how many mistakes I made with this mini release. It's been crazy. I don't know what's been wrong with me lately. I've just been trying to, get this release done and it seems like every time I make a video, I'm saying the wrong thing. I'm putting stuff in there I'm not supposed to put in. It's like, oh my goodness. There we are. So I'm going to add in some highlights with my Secure White Jelly Roll pen and a number 10. Because why not, right? I think it always adds a little something, something. Lots of fun. There we are. I love these Doodlebug odds and ends on the inside of my cards. I know I say it every time, but I do. So next I'm going to add some black glaze pen to the squirrel's eyes. Remember, you want to let this dry because it will smear if you aren't careful, and that would be a crying shame, right? So just let it dry and then you'll be in business. Now I'm taking out these farmhouse puffy icon stickers. And there are some acorns on here. And I'm going to add some here and there. Just for a little bit of fun, a little bit of shine. I think it adds some dimension and some interest when there's some shine. So I'm sort of slipping them in here and there, in amongst the die cuts. I'm going to cover up this one because I figured that's a good place for it. And I just think it looks super cute. I'm going to add a few little hearts from these puffy icons as well. I just have to figure out where they're going. But, this is what I do. I kind of move things here and there until I like it. There. And, like I said, you got to use your stuff, right? You can't just keep building the stash. You got to use it from time to time. So I try to use up my stuff as much as I can. So I'm constantly messing with my cards, seeing if I can add a few more little embellishments to use up this huge stash that I have. There, so I'm going to add a couple more of these hearts once I figure out where the heck they're going. And the nice thing is that these all match, right? So there we go. So thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to hop on over to the Jaded Blossom blog, be inspired by the team. The Jaded Blossom store to get your hands on these amazing products. And remember, check out my chipmunk assembly video. Bye, everybody.